you for joining me on today's episode of the Simply Financial Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra, and I would like to increase your financial IQ with today's discussion, which is about scams. We all see on the news regularly various scams that we have to defend ourselves against on a daily basis. They come in our email, they come over the phone, they come through social media. We all need to be careful. Now, customers or consumers, I should say, have always had to be careful. The spin on all of today's modern day scams are much like the ones in previous generations, but they are leveraging technology just like we are all using technology more in our daily lives. So just a few quick tips I wanted to share with you. I've seen this a lot recently where someone gets a call or even an email from scammers. They're professional imposters, remember, and they will pretend to be from a utility company, a credit card company, or even your bank. I think you see less of this with investment companies. It seems to me that investment companies, mutual fund houses, brokerage accounts, don't get invaded, don't get violated nearly as much as other places do. I think the industry has done a very good job of layering in protections. You still need to be careful, but I think for scammers, the easier targets are other places. So going back to the scam, they'll call and be it they're imposters, they'll pretend to be from a utility company, a bank, credit card company, and you want to be careful when somebody reaches out to you. They are going to ask to verify information. I would be very suspect to give out too much information. If they are calling from the institution, they have all of your information, and they may want to verify you, but that probably shouldn't include account numbers, and I don't think it should include social security number. If somebody calls me from an institution that I do business with and they want to verify me, I will not give out my social security number. I will not give out my account number at that institution. If they want other information to verify me, fine. If I'm not sure, I will ask for a number to call back. I'll tell them I need time and I'll address whatever issue it is, but I'll need to call back. And then I'll make sure that I'm calling back to the institution that is reaching out to me or supposedly reaching out to me. Remember, they're professional imposters. Secondly, the point I want to make is they'll often scare you. They'll try and scare you, make you panicked, make you overreact without thinking. They will do things like there's an overdue bill that you need to settle right away or you're going to have a big problem. They will say that a loved one is in trouble sometimes. They will offer you a deal, an amazing deal, the deal of a lifetime. Again, they want to throw you off. They want you to act quickly without thinking things through, and that's how you can become a victim, and that's what you want to guard against. So if it's an overdue bill or even a loved one in trouble, in 99.9% of the times, you have time. It's not something that needs to be done in a minute or two. So don't be thrown off by these tactics. Keep your cool, think things through, especially with an overdue bill. You'll have time. There probably isn't an overdue bill if you're responsible, right? So you should know, hey, it's weird that I have an overdue bill and recognize that's unusual, but don't panic. Don't overreact. Take your time. You could disengage from the call. You could always call them back. You could ask them to call you back. You can take your time to settle whatever issue is going on, whether it's legitimate or if you are potentially a victim of a scam. They'll often say they need info right away. It's another version of what I just talked about. They want your money fast. They want to get into the scam, out of the scam fast. They'll tell you to send funds immediately. Again, they want you to act fast. Guard against that. Like I said a moment ago, you don't generally need to do something right away. There's very few times where money needs to be transacted immediately in a rush with a tight deadline. That's highly, highly unusual. I think if you're listening to this and you think about your finances, how many times have you had to pay something like right on the spot in an emergency, in a rush, especially a situation where you didn't know about until you got some incoming call, email, social media prompt? It just doesn't happen. So don't be a victim. Guard against this. Be wary of wire transfers. Wire transfers have been around forever. The most common usage of wire transfers is real estate closings and big business deals. I recently bought a property and wired the money for the closing. But generally in my everyday life, I rarely use wire transfers. So if a company is requesting a wire transfer, that should trigger red flags. It does not automatically mean it's a red flag. But again, you probably rarely do wire transfers. So that should register in your mind that you ought to be careful, because a wire transfer is not a common way that you do business with any of the companies that you are a customer of. They'll also have you do payment apps. They'll try and get you to sign on to some payment apps on your computer or on your phone. If you haven't used them, something like PayPal or Venmo, you should be cautious. But even if you do use them, you should be especially cautious, because the chances of you recovering money, if you Venmo, PayPal, Zelle is another online payment service. There are others too. I'm just throwing out examples. You want to be careful, because if you send money that way, that money is very, very unlikely to be recovered. So don't do it in a rush. I've said this many times. Hopefully the point is getting across. And then the last thing is scammers. Like in previous generations, they are friendly. They are deceivers. They'll try and befriend you, strike up a conversation, a relationship, and then hit you up with how they're going to help you, either for a deal, maybe a get rich quick scheme, or to help you settle a bill so that something bad doesn't happen, like your utility gets shut off or your credit gets ruined. They will be friendly. And most people are friendly. And this is probably the most nefarious part of this, is most people we deal with over email, over the phone, are friendly people. Most people are good, decent people. So the scammers are going to try and fit in. But don't let that throw you. Just because somebody is friendly doesn't mean that you should overlook other things that might not seem right. If you slow down, take your time, be careful, use best practices, and think things through. So that's my advice today, to try and avoid scammers. It's challenging in today's environment. I get it. I get strange emails all the time. I get weird phone calls all the time. My staff does here at the Elliott Wealth Management Services offices. We do a good job of defending ourselves, both personally and professionally, and I hope you do too. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're not a client, check us out. Go to elliottwealth.com. You can find more information about me and the team, how we help clients win with money. Also, subscribe to this podcast, listeners. If you haven't done so already, I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back with you on the next episode of the Simply Financial Podcast very soon.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of Osaic Wealth, Inc., and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note, the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of information provided at these websites. nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to or your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management Services, LLC, not affiliated with Osaic Wealth, Inc.